But yeah, I guess we can start talking about the first matchup here. Buckbeard versus KDG. We know a little bit about these players. Aquaba, I want you to give a brief introduction for these guys.
So Buckbeard is from Greece. He plays for a team called Light Wizards. Couldn't find out much about them, so maybe after the event you can give us a heads up on what those guys are about. But yeah, he's been playing a lot of trading card games over his competitive lifespan, and Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, stuff like that. He also plays poker, and he's a forex. He's a currency trader, which is very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. KDG, on the other hand, he's a player from South Korea, and he's friends or practice partners with Kranich and Rennie Hour. So two players from all the way across the world. And I wish I had more cards on the EU server so I can participate a little bit more in EU tournaments. But it's really cool to see guys from everywhere. There was actually a North American player that won the EU circuit #1. So
So it looks like Buckbeard is leading this mid-range hunter into mid-range druid. So you must be pretty happy with this match because oh, it looks. This is strange actually. It's got Sludge Belcher and a Leponome. So maybe he's still going for that hybrid build that's been really popular recently, but adding a bit more of a mid-range flair to it with the Sludge Belchers and the Knife Juggler. Not Knife Juggler, sorry, the Doctor Boom.
yeah, I really like the hunter matchup. In this one, I feel like the slower the hunter is, the better chance that it can deal with the druid. Now, this can always be sort of negated if the druid gets an explosive start, like we see with the wild growth or with a big invade play. But things like freezing trap can be so hard for druids to deal with without like force of nature already in their hand. So.
Yeah, the freezing trap is what really swings the tempo in the hunter's favor here because all of the druid's drops are usually quite big. But it looks like KGG is going to get a keeper here, and sending a keeper back to your hand is probably one of the best options here for a druid.
Yeah, and the curve out here for Buckbeard is really not that great. Piloted Treader makes it a little bit better, but getting your big drops in your hand is not what you want to see, and that's one of the downfalls of the more mid-rangey hunters is sometimes they don't hit the curve. That's just how it is. Sometimes they get the big drops in the hand. Sometimes in your opening hand you have high mains, and that's one of the downfalls of it. Of course, with aggro hunter or the more face hunter, you rarely have a bad curve, but sometimes you just do with these slower hunters.
And that's an excellent top deck for Buckbeard there. Gets another Shredder, help fill out his curve. But an interesting play from KGG there. He didn't attack. He didn't test the trap at all. I'm not quite sure what he's considering there. I mean, I guess he's still trying to. I mean, once you see the Shredder, I think you should strongly consider that it is mid-range hunter and it's going to be a freezing trap. And sending that keeper to his hand is a lot better than sending the Druid of Claw back to his hand. So it's an interesting play from him there.
Yeah, he might be thinking that he wants to freeze one of these treants, but he's mousing over something else, and this would be probably the only turn that he would be able to do that. And sometimes you can't really afford to wait on the freezing trap. All right, there you go. He attacks in, sees it's freezing, and like you said, throwing the keeper back to your hand is one of the best things that you could do because the battle cry is so effective.
Oh wow, Forrison here. This is such a great card for Druid, making that combo a little bit more dangerous because they can cast it early and get that damage. But another problem that Buckbeard will have here, he doesn't have a beast for his kill command activator, so clearing out this Forrison might be a bit of trouble for him.
Yeah. The Knife Juggler Snake Trap combo could be pretty good. A lot of people don't expect Snake Trap now because a lot of hunters, even mid-range hunters, have sort of been phasing it out. Usually they go with like 2 freezing and an explosive or just 2 freezing. So the Snake Trap is always that third trap that you never expect, but you always hate yourself when you attack into it and summon 3 snakes and you don't have a way to deal with it.
But Druid is one of those classes that has a very good way to deal with it with a swipe, but KGG doesn't have one right now, and he's actually going to use this kill command here to clear out this Druid of the Claw, but that Forrison's still going to stick around a bit. This is going to be a bit of trouble for...
Unless he gets the juggle. Oh, wow. Explosive Sheep is not what he wanted to see, though.
Yeah, but Yeah, that's a bit awkward. He had a really good juggle there, managed to clear the force on, but KGG is still looking pretty comfortable here. He's got some really strong options in his hand, but
Mhm.
Buckbeard does too. I mean, all this late game stuff he drew quite early will get some use now. But how do you who do you think's ahead here? Would you say just Buckbeard's ahead on board here, but KGG has
I,
some better options?
I think KDG is ahead. Um, the Hunter didn't manage to put on much pressure early on, and I feel like missing the early curve, missing the two drops with Mad Scientist and Haunter Creeper, or even just Knife Juggle was a pretty big deal because now the overall card quality, I think going into this mid game is probably about even. Like the each card probably has just about as much power as the other, but the KDG is going to have he's got a bigger hand, so it means that he's going to last longer. And I don't know, it just feels like as long as KDG can stabilize and get to the point where he can start threatening combo, it's going to be really tough for Buckbeard to be able to do much. And Lepernome doesn't help him that
He
much.
he got a really good board clear there. Just wiped out everything, and a Sludge Belcher. It's not going to do much here as well compared to what KGG has in his hand. I mean, he has a Sylvanas, he has another Taunt, he's got another Silence, and he's got two options with the Druid, Ancient of Law, sorry, to either heal or draw cards. It's yeah, KGG is so far ahead with hand advantage, and he just has a lot of ways to respond to anything Buckbeard's playing right now.
Yeah. The one problem might be the Doctor Boom, but he does have ways to deal with it, like this Sylvanas and um, even Force of Nature as sort of just an emergency clear. He doesn't have the BGH in his hand, but pretty much once he gets through Doctor Boom, it's pretty much game over. Because even if Buckbeard was to draw into like a high main, KDG has ways to do with that too. He's got Keeper of the Grove, and by that point he'll probably have board advantage. And Hunter's Mark is probably not what he wanted to see because Hunter's Mark really isn't that effective against Sylvanas.
Yeah, not right now. Yeah, I totally agree with you there. Once this Doctor Boom gets cleared up, it's going to be such an uphill battle for Buckbeard because the Druid will have such an advantage with the power in his hand and developing his board. His board will always get stronger and stronger than Buckbeard's. And I don't think there's anything in mid-range Hunter at this point that can really deal with KDG.
Yeah,
So he's opting to go for face here. Maybe he's see if Buckbeard does recognize this now, maybe he just figured that he needs to close this game out as fast as possible. So taking a more
yeah,
aggressive stance with the only chance he has of winning. Whereas if he decided to start trading now or just try and fight for board, it just wouldn't help him at all.
yeah, yeah. That's actually a really good point. There's a certain stage in some games when you're playing Hunter where you just have to, or mid-range Hunter. With face Hunter, you just go face no matter what. But there's a certain point in mid-range Hunter where you have to start not worrying too much about the board and just try and get as much damage in as possible with your creatures as you can.
And you
And
kind of hope for those quick shots, those
yeah,
kill commands just to close things out.
yeah. Well, I think he might try and go for. He could go for a 50-50. Oh no,
Ooh.
I think he would have been able to go for a 100% steal on Doctor Boom if he had just attacked his keeper into the bomb and then keepered his own Sylvanas. But he gets it anyway with the bomb, so that was actually a little bit not risky, but there was always the chance that the bomb would go off and hit the Sylvanas and he'd steal the boom. But that was the only way that that play would backfire.
And he gets a 7-7 out of it. So he
Yeah,
was a little bit lucky there. I mean, if it had gone the other way, Buckbeard would still have a 7-7 sitting there. But
yeah.
he used that. I think he was quite effective using that force of nature there. I think KDG has recognised now that this hunter's run out of steam. So relying on combo to win is not as much of a big deal as it was, say, if the game had panned out differently. So yeah, I do like he used that there to
Mhm.
get the steal on the 7-7.
And it was a very low chance that he actually that the bomb hit his Sylvanas and he stole Boombot instead of Doctor Boom. So it was a calculated risk, and he was still in the game even if Bot Doctor Boom was stolen because he would have had a decent sized board. He had Ancient of Lords in his hand to heal as sort of an emergency. And usually, how I gauge my success in a hunter matchup as a druid is if I can draw with Ancient of Lores at any point and still pretty much be ahead in the game, you're in a great spot.
I mean, this high main's not going to make much of a difference here. We see another silence in KDG's hand, and he gets a
Yeah.
really good trade here. It's looking so bleak for Buckbeard here. I mean, having to use his Hunter's Mark here on the 4/6 just to clear it is pretty terrible as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
Just
we
one of
haven't
the
even seen a
downfalls.
swipe. We haven't even seen a swipe from KGG yet, and he's dominating this game. Like, a swipe is such a good card against Hunter sometimes. Clearing up tokens, clearing up some of the smaller drops. But yeah, this
Yeah.
is looking excellent for KGG right now.
He might feel like he has to try and kill Pilot of Shredder to maybe get like a Doomsayer or
Oh.
or something. I don't because right now if he just goes face and plops High Main down, there's 16 damage just staring at him on board. So he might just be calculating to see if just Savage Row would be lethal, but he is actually going to try and attack into it to maybe get something. But this High Main's going to come down. It's his last card, and I don't think this High Main's going to be able to get in any swings.
I mean, look at his options here. Not only does he get the silence and a clean trade, he also gets a Belcher to follow back up to protect him even further.
Mm.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a concede after this last draw. Oh, quick shot. He can cycle.
Yeah,
from
but
much.
even if he chains like quick shot to the face into quick shot to the face, puts him down to 10, puts him down to 8 with hero power, it's like, what can he possibly draw that's going to win him the match?
He's playing with optimism. We'll put it down to that.
Okay, yeah. He's going to quick shot, into Unleash, into Owl.
Oh, he doesn't even
Into-
play the companion.
Yeah. So, he's actually on a draw to win. He's got 14 damage on board, so all he needs is a swipe or a Savage Roar or a Force of Nature. Harrison Jones is not it, but that's just another reason why Buckbeard's really far behind, because even if he does find a weapon to play, then it's just going to get put into a museum.
And even healed as well, just to secure that win even further.
Oh, man. Well, there's the Haunted Creeper and the Animal Companions that he wish he had on turn 2 and turn 3. All right, there's the concede, and Buckbeard's going to fall in game 1.
Yeah, KGG had a good start, whereas Buckbeard's was a lot slower. Like I said, he didn't get that Haunted Creeper, didn't get that Animal Companion. Unfortunately, he was stuck with a Sludge Belt and a Dr. Boom quite early, which didn't really have any impact on the whole game at all because he was so far behind on board at that point and resources. So KGG takes that game pretty comfortably, I say.
Yeah, it's all about that 2-drop. It's all about turn 2. If Druid has Wild Growth and Hunter whiffs the turn 2 by not having Haunted Creeper or Mad Scientist, it's really tough for the Hunter. The Druid has to have a lot of dead draws. They have to have a lot of dead things in their hand in order for the Hunter to come back from something like that. So KDG is going to get the win with the Druid out of the way. And he's got Mage and Rogue left.
So Rogue is more than likely going to be Oil Rogue because it's the only viable Rogue deck in the meta right now. Mage, on the other hand, can be either Tempo Mage, it could be Freeze Mage. I mean, Freeze Mage is not brilliant at the moment, but, you know, it's still played, and you still got the option of those weird control mages. You've got the Dragon Control Mage Kibler's been playing recently. There's the Control Mage that was quite popular with the... what's his name? The guy who makes you become Ragnaros. I can't remember his name.
Major Domo. Oh,
That's the
man.
one.
Yeah, Major Domo Executus. That card. So I experimented with the Major Domo Mage for like 2 hours. And it was the hardest deck I've ever played in my entire life. And I lost nearly every game with it. And since then, I've like shelved it. I'm like, I'm never playing that guy again.
One of my
It's a tough
teammates
deck.
played it. Yeah, one of my teammates played it for a while, and he really enjoyed it. But like I said, it's very hard. There's a lot of very careful decisions and planning needed. But we're actually going to see the mid-range hunter come back again, and KGG is going to be rocking that Oil Rogue, and goes for an early South Sea deckhand here to contest any kind of low drops that's going to come from Buckbeard.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much I like that. The I do like it since he doesn't have a way to deal with the first drop that's going to come down. But okay, yeah. Using the Eviscerate here, the main thing I like to use the South Sea deckhands for are traps. Like it's the perfect way to test for a freezing trap because it's like 1 mana, it goes back to your hand. You can still combo with oil, so it's fantastic when you're trying to do that. So if I know that it's mid range hunter, I won't throw it down on turn 1 because I want to save that for the trap. But he doesn't really have a way to deal with the first drop. He feels like he's going to be able to test him with trap anyway. And he attacks face, so he knows that it's actually snake trap. And this is problematic because that was a knife juggler on board. He can't attack into it because he's just going to get the juggles plus the snakes. This is super annoying.
Yeah, it's quite an awkward turn for KGG, really. I mean, what you can't, like I said, you can't attack into this knife juggler because you don't want those snakes going off, and he doesn't actually have an answer in his hand to deal with the snakes yet.
Yeah.
So he's just used his eviscerate on the scientist. So he's going to be hoping to draw a backstab here, or maybe another eviscerate to deal with. I mean, even a fan of knives wouldn't be too bad, but he's still taking a few knives to the face. So yeah, it's really a real awkward spot.
He has to sap the knife juggler. Sap is such an important card in this matchup. It's one of the reasons why people say Rogue is strong against mid-range hunter is because you can sap high mains. You can effectively waste an entire mid-game turn against mid-range hunter, and he has to use it on the knife juggler because he just has no way to deal with it. And now he can just replay it with the leper gnome, and he's right back into the same spot that he was last turn.
I don't even know if it's worth playing the sap there. Like you said, it's such an important tool for the rogue. They need it for those high mains, like to slow down the mid-range hunter coming into that, like those crucial turns of like low febs into high mains, etc. And I've seen in a couple of lists, and even the list I'm running right now, where I only run one sap at the moment, and so he's probably going to be hoping he finds another sap. But he does find that backstab,
Wow.
which we're talking about.
Such a ridiculous sequence of draws for KDG. If he didn't draw that sprint, if that card was literally anything else in his deck besides backstab, he pretty much lost the game. Like he had an Earthring Farseer and a Deadly Poison in his hand, which wasn't going to help him do much. But he had prep in his hand, draws into sprint, and then gets a backstab from it. So it allows him to deal with the knife juggler. But that was a scary early game for KDG.
Yeah, with some really good draws off that sprint, he's managed to recover. I mean, we were talking about how awful the sap was for him, but he's looking pretty good in his hand now. He can pop this snake trap at his leisure now because he has that fan of knives to deal with the snakes when they come out.
Yeah. Yep.
So Buckbeard here is considering a freezing trap here, just to keep the tempo, I think. He's got to consider... KGG is a rogue player. He's just drawn quite a few cards. He's going to be getting one of two Blade Flurries or one or two Fan of Knives, so he probably wants to protect this snake trap a little bit until it becomes a little bit more useful.
Yeah. Buckbeard does have both Savannah high mains, and he can feel a little bit more comfortable about playing them on the board just because he knows that one sap is gone. Not sure if he runs two. It's a possibility that he runs two, and considering how easily he threw the first one away, I can imagine he runs two. But yeah, he's going to be feeling pretty confident. And this is a very clean Fan of Knives clear. He does have to take some damage for it, but he knows that that's okay because he had a pretty decent early game.
And he's packing two Earthen Ring Farseers in his hand, so he's got 6 points of healing coming up when he needs it. So yeah, it's looking pretty good. I mean, this freezing trap will be a little problematic for a while. Depends how he deals with his high main in the next few turns.
Ooh.
So, that's a juicy card.
Yeah. So he picks up the Earthen Ring Farseer here. He doesn't quite have enough mana to do everything that he'd want to do. But he's just going to be able to play both Earthen Rings and set up for the next turn here.
I would like if he doesn't attack with a Drake here because it'll force Buckbeard to try and deal with these Earthen Rings, because if he bounces an Earthen Ring back to his hand, it's a lot better for KDG than say a Drake at this point, because he can start putting on more healing and putting more pressure on Buckbeard. And eventually at that point, the Rogue will start to outrace the Hunter with just giant Blade Flurry combos and giant Tinkers combos. So I like that he's gone for this double Farseer play. Like, so just to put that pressure on Buckbeard.
Yeah, and he actually does have Blade Flurry to deal with the hyenas that come out from the Savannah High Main. So yeah, I'd say he's in a pretty decent spot. The one thing he actually even has double spell power as well. Um, yeah, see, this is such a weird turn because he really does not want those Earthen Ring Farsters to get freezing trapped. It's not quite as bad as say like an antique heal bot because 3 heal is it's not the worst thing in the world, but when you know that every point of damage counts when you're playing the mid range hunter, you know that it is going to come down to a race when you, like you said, the rogue's going to get to those turns where he can make huge oil and blade flurry turns. Then you need to be able to try and kill him as quickly as possible. He's really thinking. He decides to kill the Azure Drake.
I think he's accepted the fact that one of these Farseers is going back. Oh wait, no, he could have cleared both of them actually with the Hymen and the bow, but it looks like he doesn't really mind if a Farseer goes back to his hand here.
Yeah. Hmm.
That's an interesting draw. Forasan in Rogue. Some people seem to like it. Some people seem to not. I personally don't like Forasan in Rogue. I don't feel it's necessary. You have enough utility with like preps and stuff like that to make your hand size smaller. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting card. What do you think about it?
A lot of times on turn 6, you don't really have the luxury of just being able to play Thorsan. I feel like I think the weakest part for Rogue, or a lot of times the weakest part, is the early game because you don't have like early creatures to play. You don't curve out early. The early game you're just removing, and so by the time you get to turn 6, usually you're like wanting to start building up like big blade for your turns. And like you said, they already have preps, like they already have tools that make what they have in their hand cheaper. And a lot of times their spells are so cheap. A lot of times you don't need Thorsan to reduce. Like, what if you have a handful of backstabs and preps? Thorsan does nothing unless like a load that is played. So yeah, I do respect the fact that people like to put it in, but I don't think it's really necessary. I'd rather have that be like a Palette Shredder or a Violet Teacher or the second oil or something like that.
Yeah, the thing with the rogue lists as well, they're quite tight with their
Oh yeah.
slots as well. And like, what do you sacrifice for the forest? And do you sacrifice low feb? I think the low feb's a bit too important. Um, and we see a big game hunter here, which is I think is a good choice in the current meta at the moment. So again, that's another tech spot taken, and then we got Forreston as well. So what has he cut? And he has Sifesea as well. So what
Double
has he
South
cut?
here. He might have
So
cut anti-Keelbot, second oil, second fan, second sap. Um, there's quite a few things, but I think all those are important. I think second fan was cut for BGH because there's like less paladins, more handlocks. Um, but I honestly have no idea. I agree with you that the list is super tight, and he also runs South Sea Deckhand, which is a card that a lot of people have been cutting as well. I know Osaka really doesn't like South Sea Deckhand, and instead he puts in like a Violet Teacher in place of that. But yeah, I have no idea what he cuts for that.
So looking at Buckbeard here, he's got another high main down. He's silenced the Forest, so he doesn't want him reducing his hand size anymore with the costs. But so yeah, it's a bit awkward here for KDG. Depends what he does. He push for damage here, or does he clear this high main and just summon the hyenas? I mean, I guess this is a choice KDG needs to make from this point. Does he want to race him, or does he? Does he start going for more board clear?
He's got. The thing is, you don't know what those cards are in his hand. You haven't seen much direct damage, so you're a little scared, but you don't really have a choice. Misha,
Misha's not the best here. I don't know what if he had Leok or Huffer. He would have been able to throw out a lot of damage,
yeah.
but not enough for lethal. I don't think.
Well, if he had Leok, he would have been able to take out the Earthen Ring Farseer without having to either attack into it or kill it with his high main. Like he could have unleashed the hounds and attacked both of those in. But now he might have to like trade his high main into this Earth Ring Farce here to just protect him from the damage. I don't know if he can even afford to do that. He might just have to go face and hope that he doesn't have anything to get through this Misha.
So
Because
the race is on.
yeah, there's 15 damage on board. Just a sap and an eviscerate, he's dead next turn. And so in that case, I think Misha's better if he wasn't planning on trading because it sort of blocks damage, which is what he wanted to do. Because at this point, I think blocking damage is better than doing 4 damage to the opponent. So
this is the second time Buckbeard has roped on his high main attack. Just considering decisions of where these high mains are going. I mean,
it's tough.
I remember it is. It's been a very hard match for him, really, because when you get these high mains where they're in a comfortable position to hit face, I mean, Amaz always jokes once high main hits face, it's usually GG's from there on. But it's been tough for Buckbeard.
I think that might be it. He'll have a 7 damage Blade Flurry plus 11 on board. Oh no! Oh yeah, and they can re-dagger up. Yeah.
Yeah, you can attack with the new weapon, with the deadly.
Yeah, that is lethal. So we'll have a 6 damage dagger. It'll be a 7 damage Blade Flurry plus 11 damage on board. That's 18. He re-daggers up and he kills him. So that should be lethal, if I counted right, and if he sees it. I think he's going to count, but yeah.
Yep. He's working it out.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. This has to be. I saw this nearly instantly. So 11 damage on board. Deadly Poison would make a 6 damage dagger. And then he, with Spell Power, he Blade Flurries up to make it a 7 damage Blade Flurry. Alright, I think he sees it. No? I guess it doesn't matter. He can re-dagger up in Deadly Poison. Either way, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he just needs to find the 3 damage. Alright, well, KDG, wow, he's going to take... That looked a little rough at first, but he manages to find a way to win with exact lethal. And he's going to take 2-0 lead.
Yeah, it was really good play from him. He managed to make those high mains really awkward for Buckbeard. He had to make some really strange trades, some very tough decisions, and we were saying quite early on in the match that the sap would be very important in that matchup to for the Rogue to win. But in the end, KDG managed to pull that out without actually needing the sap, which was very well played for him.
Yeah, the big thing is if that sprint that he drew early on had come 1 or 2 turns later, that would have been a completely different game. He wouldn't have had to wait to deal with the Knife Juggler right off the bat. He would have taken an extra 6 damage over the course of the turns where he was drawing into sprints. So very timely sprint draw, and sort of fortunate for him that that he wasn't really punished for having to sap the Knife Juggler early on. And we did only see 1 sap there, so as far as we know, he only runs 1, but we didn't see probably about, maybe 12 cards in that deck. I think it was what it came down to after that sprint, so we'll have to see. But KDG is 1 game away, and we're going to move into it, and it looks like Mech Mage is the deck.
So Buckbeard here wants to get this Hunter win. He's hungry for it. He doesn't want this Hunter to go down without a fight. I mean, would you have changed deck at this point just to try and get a win with something else? Because his Hunter has been, it's been a bit awkward for him in the last 2 games.
Yeah, I don't know. I have this discussion with a lot of players, do you switch decks if you're losing? I think you just keep with the same deck, because even though you've been losing with it, you're getting a feel for the deck. You're in the mindset of that deck, and especially if he thinks this is his weaker deck, then getting one with his first opens up easy opportunities. And you have to win with all 3 anyway, so you might as well just keep to the deck that you've been playing the whole time. But I know a lot of players feel superstitious or feel like the deck isn't on, so they want to give it a break for a second. I've heard some players say they want to reset their RNG, which is ridiculous, but it is what some people say.
And if I was to change deck in a Conquest format that was lost 2 in a row, I think it depends on the psychology of the player sometimes. Some players may be tilted too hard on that deck that they just need to play another deck just to kind of get a breath of fresh air almost, get a new feel for the match. And if they get that win, then it might give them the confidence to go on and take the set. But what's really strange about this current game is Mech Mage. This is a deck that's really fallen off as of recent. I mean, I'm a big fan of mech decks. I just love like kind of the tempo and the aggro of them they can produce. But yeah, Tempo Mage has really taken Mech Mage's spot as a kind of go-to aggro deck for Mage right now, and it's quite interesting to see Mech Mage.
Yeah, I think it might have to do with the fact that he's playing on the EU servers from Korea. He might not have as many cards, and all the decks that he's played so far have been pretty cheap. Oil Rogue, Druid. I guess Druid not so much because there's a lot of epics in there, and Mech Mage. So it might just be the fact that he doesn't have as many cards. But you know, in the Asian servers, there's the meta is just so completely different. So maybe Mech Mage is a little bit stronger over there than the Tempo Mage. Who knows?
Yeah, that's what I really like about the Asian servers. They have just a whole different approach to the meta than we do. And decks we find strong, they might find kind of like they might think differently about them. Like the Tempo Mage, for example, Tiddler created a very different version of that before Flamewalker came out, Flamewalker, sorry, and had Pyroblast and Ice Blocks in there. It was completely different to the Tempo Mages that were seen in like NAEU.
Yeah.
But he decides to fireball this Misha. He wants to protect his spider tank. It's very important for Mech Mage to protect its minions because that's where most of its damage comes from. Fireballs and frostbolts are generally finishers or just for board clears, just to keep that kind of board presence.
Yeah, it was funny in the North American qualifier that I casted a couple of days ago for the One Nation of Gamers. One of the players also was in the same spot where they didn't have many cards on NA because they were a player that was played primarily on the Asian servers, and so they put spider tanks in their Druid because they didn't have Dust for Shades, because Shades are epic and spider tanks are just a generic common GVG card. So it was actually pretty funny to see spider tanks in Druid, in a non-mech Druid.
That was something. That was something one of my old teammates actually tested out for a while, over Shades. He was kind of like juggling between Spider Tanks, Shades, and Mind Control Techs when he was playing Ramp Druid, when Ramp Druid was coming back for a little while. Didn't stick around for too long. So I think it's fine. It's a bulky minion, and that's what Druids kind of want at that point. I mean, Shade is obviously a lot better, but he was willing to test it because GVG was quite new. But looking at the board here, KDG is looking quite far ahead. Again, Buckbeard doesn't really have a lot going on. He's going to be able to clear one of these minions here with his bow and maybe develop a Leponome. But again, he just seems just a bit far behind.
Yeah, the one thing though is that Mech Mages don't really have much like hand depth. Like they don't have many ways to refill the hand. A lot of Mech Mages don't run Arcane Intellect. The only way that they refill their hand is by getting like Azure Drakes, which some of them don't even run. Whoa, the Kazan Mystic!
That card, that has ruined lives. That card, that card, I think upsets people more sometimes. There's stuff like Doctor Boom. I mean, Kazan, especially against Hunter, I feel, especially hunters who run freezing traps, it can just completely change the game. It can actually lose. You can actually lose the game to a Kazan sometimes. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're this far behind on board, you manage to get a freezing trap down to kind of help fight for board again with minions and the combination of the trap. And then Kazan comes down, and then your minion can't do anything because the freezing trap is protecting them, and they've got a 4/3 sitting there, and it can ruin a hunter's day.
Especially if you make a play like play Savannah Highmane and then try and protect it with a freezing trap, then they Kazan steal your freezing trap, and all of a sudden you can't attack with Highmane. And Highmane getting a freezing trap is like the worst thing in the world. It's the same as Highmane getting sapped, but worse. And he's going to throw out the snake trap here. And I can imagine KDG is feeling pretty happy that he's going to have a secret to steal.
So he just goes for it here.
Wow.
The thing is, though,
brutal.
Snake Trap can play into the hunter's favor to an extent because of Unleash the Hounds, but of course we don't see one in Buckbeard. He probably wanted a freezing trap more. Mm-hmm. I definitely would at this point. Yeah. But you're going to take whatever you can get from a Kesen, really. It's a free 2-mana secret that your class doesn't have available to you. It's a
Yeah,
fantastic Caligate Hunter.
yeah. And oh man, he doesn't even want to attack in because he knows that he's just going to give him 3 snakes. He's going to take 4 damage, give him 3 snakes. Okay, so he just goes ahead and decides to attack face, but that's pretty rough. And the card quality here for KDG is not the best, but Piloted Shredder, that's 4 damage a turn. Now Buckbeard's out of cards. I think this one is pretty much in the bag for KDG.
So what went wrong for Buckbeard here is, as a hunter, which is one thing you never want to do, is play reactive. He had to play reactive straight from the get-go because the Mech Mage was able to develop such a strong board, and Buckbeard didn't have the opportunity to develop a board of his own. He was just relying on removal, and you never want to be like that as a hunter. And it's one of the weaknesses of the Priest class. It's a very reactive class, and I think sometimes when you play reactive, it just costs you the game.
Yeah. And I think that's game over. He can hope for Doomsayer once again from Pilot Shredder. But when you're in a best of 5 match, and twice in the best of 5 match, you have to attack into a Pilot Shredder out of desperation for a Doomsayer. That best of 5 didn't go too well. And whoa, that's crazy! Both times he was looking for a Doomsayer, he got a Scavenging Hyena. That's pretty unlikely.
Wow.
All right. Well played comes out, and wow, a quick series to start off the day. KDG takes a 3-0 victory over Buckbeard, and that's a tough way to go out after your Buckbeard. He played through the whole qualifier yesterday, and goes out 3-0 once he finally makes it to the top 4.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's Hunter let him down. That whole series is Hunter let him down. I would have liked to have seen him change decks, just to try and give an opportunity to get some momentum going. I mean, the Hunter just didn't work at all, and the icing on the cake there was a Kesen Mystic in the Mech Mage. It just all went against Buckbeard in that game. But fair play to KDG. He made some really good plays and some really good decisions. That road game was fantastic, I think, from both players' parts. But I had to make some really tough calls.
Yeah. So KDG is going to move on to the finals. He's going to take on the winner of our next match, which is going to be Tom 60229 and Mirari from My Insanity. And Buckbeard, of course, he's not out yet. He'll play one more match. He'll play for 3rd place. And there is some, of course, GEICO points on the line. There's World Championship points on the line as well. So 3rd and 4th place, they have a difference of 2 GEICO points. And for taking 3rd, you get $50. Whereas for taking 4th, you don't get any money whatsoever. So next matchup, of course, is going to be Tom 60229 versus Mirari. We do want to give you guys one quick reminder to head over to geico.onog.gg. You'll find all the information for the tournament, as well as all the information about GEICO points, the feature tournaments, and leading up to that grand final at PAX. You can also get a GEICO quote, and you can enter to win that official TSM PC. So we are going to go to a quick break. You can head over to that website during the break to get some of that information. But once again, guys, don't go anywhere. More One Nation of Gamers Summer Circuit right after this break.